So anyway, my eyes look weird. I don't know what it is. Like I said, I must have fallen asleep on my eyeballs. But the wind is insane. The wind all night was crazy. You know, and I'm always said when I was growing up, because the reason I say that is because I grew up in this house, and there was a whole point, because in the 90s I lived in New York, but so there's like a real separation between when I was growing up, so 70s, 80s, and now, and it's just so different sometimes. But so because I lived in this house and because I, remember well, the noise from the wind, it was not like this. And I don't even think like it was like this a few years ago. Maybe once in a great while. Okay. But the last couple years, the wind has been, when we get a storm, either whether there's snow or rain with it, whatever, the wind is so loud and so bad. It's like if you were to go outside, you go flying. And it's like, I know when I was growing up that never happened, because like I said, I was a kid that walked to school. So I would have walked to school in the morning, walked to school at night. If it was that windy, I would have blown away, you know. And I don't remember ever. I remember once when I was small, I remember it was slightly windy, not like this. And the girl I was friends with at the time, her little brother was scared of the wind, so he was crying and stuff. But it was nothing like this. It was just normal, fall wind or spring wind. Now it's like, I forgot that I have a bucket that I put like the cans and stuff in until I take it down to the bucket. Like I'll just throw them in there instead of walking down. I forgot I left it out there. So like 1 o'clock in the morning, I hear it go flying down the stairs. So I had to run out and get it. But I'm like, I didn't even think of that, because they're always saying how windy it is, and that bucket's always there. But overnight, it was like so bad. And then I checked, AccuWeather.com, and it said something like at the time the wind was 23 with gusts to 35. I'm like, no, it can't be, because it's so loud. You know, to me, it had to be like 40 all night or something like that, because it just sounds like I said, you get real storms and hurricanes and stuff like that. The wind's supposed to be worse than that. It doesn't sound like this. This sounds like a wall of wind almost all night. Like every once in a while, take a break, they just come back again, which doesn't make sense either. Because if you have wind and you have a storm, it should start getting windy, be windy, start tapering off, and then be done. It shouldn't be like wind, 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 wind for like 20 minutes, then stop completely. So you think, oh, it's all done. Then an hour later, it's wind, 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 wind. That doesn't make sense. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just like, I know the climate's messed up. I am not a climate denier, okay? I am not any of those things. But, like I said, they started the environmental stuff when I was a kid, and everybody was supposed to plant a tree and stuff like that. Like when I was in high school, they started that kind of crap. And they wanted to recycle, and oh, we shouldn't use all this paper. That was the thinking at the time. And oh, everybody's hairspray's ruining the ozone, and that's what they were saying, right? Okay, so everybody's hairspray ruined the ozone. So what people have been focused on all this time is trying to undo it. And like I said, I have heard from people like Al Gore that we passed the point of undoing it a while back. So these Paris Accords and all these things, and cut this and cut that, what we should have been doing all this time is preparing our stuff and doing our way of life different, based on the idea that weather was going to be a problem for everybody all the time. And we should have been making all of our houses and all of our activities and everything weatherproof. All the buildings and stuff like that. But that's not what happened. So I'm sitting here and I'm just like, It's scary. The wind is scary, and I'm like, I don't remember being scared of the wind. Because it sounds like it's gonna kill you. Apart from doing damage or whatever, it sounds like it's coming to kill you. It's just like, I spent so many days just not going out because the wind chill is supposed to be so cold. I don't want to stand at the bus stop and freeze. You know, and it's like, I mean, can you hear that? It's been all night long. Like, I remember as a kid, because like I said, I was afraid of thunder and lightning. I've said that before. I remember when a squall line would come through, or when, like a cold front would come by to clean out the air and everything. With the thunderstorms, right ahead of the front, you get strong winds. So that, yeah. But not this stuff. Those cold fronts and squalls and stuff like that is, half an hour at best. But this stuff, like I said, all night. Like 1 o'clock in the morning I had around, right? It's 9:14 in the a.m. right now. And it was windy before that too. So it's just like, and when I went to bed last night, they were like, oh, there might be, some tree limbs or whatever. Don't I wake up this morning, a tree landed on somebody's house? Like, okay, that's different. Because they were simultaneously saying that it was going to be really horrible wind, and then just saying, so if you have to be at the bus stop in the morning, or if little kids have to go to the bus stop or whatever. But they were acting like there was going to be no damage, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of the night, I'm like listening to it, thinking everybody's roof's going to be off, And I'm just like, why is this like this? Because it's just, when I talk about why, when I do why, it's like, why, God, why? I'm that kind of person, But I don't necessarily blame God or anything for it. I just want to know why it's happening now, why things are compounding other things, because as I've complained in all my other things, the people on the bottom are the ones that are suffering. It's the people on the bottom that don't have the ability to adapt monetarily to everything that's going on. And if you watch the news, if you watch stuff like that, it's like they're not even talking about what's going on. Oh, now here's another thing I wanted to talk about. Because I'm a fruity person and I like fruity woo woo stuff, as they call it, I will watch pick cards, or self-help gurus, or manifestation videos, or whatever. I'll watch all that stuff. And some of these people, they're sitting there and telling everybody how to behave and stuff, and I've been reading these kind of books since before they were born. But what's gotten me, and I think it's probably since Oprah's push with The Secret, because all the stuff in The Secret, or any of the people who came on Oprah's show with their self-help books, they were just stealing from gurus from the past and everything. But this love and light all the time nonsense, it's so destructive and detrimental. I mean, once again, my whole thing is the truth and being honest. And you can't be honest and be like, love and light all the time, love and light, love and light, ooh, everything just love and light, and just think positive and everything will be fabulous. You're lying to yourself if you say that. And if you say that to people who are going through a hard time, that's particularly horrible, because then you're just blaming them for everything because they just didn't have their mind on the right things. When you're going through a hard time, to keep positive all the time is ridiculous. And to try to force somebody to do that by guilting them or making them feel like it's their own fault when bad shit happens to them because they were thinking negative or something. I'm not saying there isn't something to the thinking positive thing. Of course there is. But to try to hold people to ridiculous standards, or to tell them that somehow them feeling bad about a bad situation is making it worse. That's a nice idea for monks who are all sitting around not having to pay rent and, not having to still deal with normal human society. If you're off in a monastery somewhere or you're a rich person who, you're some actress who has millions of dollars in the bank, and you're doing yoga, and you just want to tell people those things, and you made all your money because God or the universe was nice enough to make you extremely beautiful, and all your money came from your face. Then, sitting there and, telling everybody, oh, be positive, and, if you gotta get your mind, raise your vibration, and, and trying to act like you're now a guru because everything in your life is wonderful, and you're probably freaking out more than anybody else about stuff that you got under control. I mean, like I said, it's not even a dichotomy. There's something so messed up about how the media and them are putting through this message, and then what's really going on. And the funny part is, why I was bringing up these people with their positive messages and stuff, so many of them say, don't watch the news, don't go on social media. I'm like, wait a minute, you don't watch the news, you don't know what's going on. If you have to do that to stay positive, you're not being alive in 2021. And to me, you're shirking some of your responsibility as a citizen, because what happens 4 years later? You got to vote. You haven't been watching the news for 4 years. I cannot deal with people who sit there and they round themselves up because they know who to vote for, and they don't know anything that went on because they weren't watching the news. Because, oh no, I don't watch the news. Like, they're proud of themselves. Oh no, I don't watch the news. It's like, well then, how are you going to tell anybody? You know what I mean? As if the news is just sadness all day. If the news is just sadness all day, guess what? But the fact is, you have to watch the news to know. Sometimes they'll tell you what laws are being passed. But either way, if you can watch the news and understand that they are putting out a message that they want to put out, then you also know what they're up to. And you can say, okay, so this is what they're doing. That's why every step of the way during this pandemic, because I watched, in the beginning, I watched all the updates when President Trump and Fauci and, BRICS used to come out and do their messaging. I heard them lie. I heard them say one thing, and then later on say the completely opposite thing about masks and stuff like that, because I was paying attention the whole time. Now, the people who weren't watching the news will say, oh, no, they're wonderful people. They're trying to help everybody. You just want to kill grandmas. Why? Because they're not watching the news. They are in their echo chamber with their friends. They don't watch the news. Maybe they get tweets from their friends. They read the headline on tweets if their friends, and the headlines are always misleading. If their friends retweet something, and then they think they know what's going on, and they think that they, oh no, I don't watch the news. Yet, they don't know that every step of the way the government did the wrong thing. They're now finding out that Cuomo isn't perfectly wonderful. But why? Because of sexual harassment accusations, not because he killed all those people. And they also act like the framing of the story now is that the media is just finding out about this, about the nursing home thing with Cuomo. That's what they've been saying for like the last month or so. The media was reporting it then. People didn't want to hear it because he was anti-Trump. So all the anti-Trump people liked him. They gave him an Emmy for being anti-Trump, even though he was killing people with the nursing homes, and we all knew it. I knew it. Everybody knew it. It was being reported. So these governors, because Baker did, they put people in these facilities, like in Massachusetts, of course, the nursing homes, but also we had a very bad situation in a veteran's place. I think it was up in Holyoke. So they were really screwing up the people who lived in these kind of facilities by, because I don't know if you've ever been in those places. I actually was in a nursing home because I was sick, but I didn't want to. I was afraid to do the stuff by myself. They wanted me to inject myself and everything I was like, I'll end up killing myself. So I guess Mass Health didn't cover a real place, so I had to go in this nursing home place for a couple weeks. And those places it's not a nightmare. It's just, it's, you don't get the feeling that if something goes wrong, you know what I mean, you're gonna be taken care of. Because what happens is if something goes wrong, you got to go to the hospital, so they're gonna move you. It's not like they could take care of you there. So their attention to detail on sanitary things and stuff like that might not be that great. You have to understand, when you're even in a hospital, when you're there, the people you're dealing with most of the time are like nursing assistants, nursing aides. There's somebody who went to one of these certificate type courses where they're basically kind of like orderlies, but not, big, huge orderlies that move bodies and stuff like that. They're just, that's what they would have been in the old days. In the old days, you wouldn't have said, let an orderly take over for a nurse's job, but in a lot of situations, that's what you have. So you have a lot of people who, and I'm not, generalizing and saying these people don't know what they're doing, because a lot of them are good people, but you have to understand the education level of the people who are, you're dealing with most of the time in these kind of settings is not that of a nurse and people like that. And a lot of times they're the ones dealing with everything. I know they get trained on how to do, all the sanitary stuff and everything like that. But, when people are in these settings for a long time, they get comfortable. They don't do everything exactly like they're supposed to. And when you have a situation like the germ that we had, you need people to react as if it's, in like a movie like Outbreak, where everybody suddenly puts on all the stuff. They didn't have it. They weren't ready. That's the fault of the administrations of these places who didn't keep that stuff on, in storage, because they run everything, to the penny. So they only order what they need. That's why we were caught the way we were and everything went the way it did. And they all want to blame the president. But that was up to individual places. And when people like Cuomo and stuff did things, I don't know where they were getting their information from, whether they were just putting people in nursing. Everything they did, every step of the way, if you were watching it, you were like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. They were constantly doing things that don't make sense. And that these elected officials they don't know. Their education ain't that great either. They may have gone to a very good school, but they were going to be lawyers. They weren't going to learn about germs. So they defer to experts. And they get an expert in there to tell them, okay, do this, do that. And you don't know what kind of people they're dealing with. You don't know if they just want to please the person they're talking to or whatever. So you have people like Cuomo or any governor going completely based on whatever the expert is telling them, without saying to themselves, does this make sense? They just like, well, I don't know anything about that stuff, so I'm just going to defer to them. So their leader, they relinquished their leadership, and they just allowed the experts, who at the time were saying, we don't know. They were saying that, right? But nobody was listening. And then after a while, they stopped saying we don't know, because people were demanding, assertions from them that nobody could have made about a disease nobody knew about. When you don't know, you have to act like you have Ebola on your hands. You have to act like, you have the worst disease possible. And nobody was doing that because nobody was ready. If everybody was ready for Ebola, an Ebola outbreak, like, everything would have been fine. But these people didn't know what to do. Or if they had plans, they didn't know how to handle it. They didn't understand. So if they were going to shut down, it should have been, complete shutdown for, whatever they thought at the time, 2 weeks, meaning nobody move. Everybody stand still, which I said. I swear to God, I said that on my Twitter. I said, all right, everybody freeze where you are. Don't move for 2 weeks. Because that's the only way you stop a virus. You know what I mean? You don't go out for supplies for 1 hour. You don't have the elderly go first thing in the morning, everybody else go later on. You just don't do it. Everybody would have to stay where they are. The end. Nobody meet each other. Nobody, no mail, no delivery food. The only way would have been to have locked everybody down with whatever food they had. And if you wanted the military to come around and leave rations on everybody's porch and bottles of water, that's about it. But the military would not be able to go home to their family. They would have to be quarantined away from, you know what I mean? Real military type stuff is the only way you would have been able to stop it. So if you weren't going to do that, you might as well have left everything open. And that's what I said. And I was right. And they were wrong. But now I'm rambling because I don't even remember. So the point is, I know all this because I was paying attention. And I've always paid attention. That's why I know what's going on. That's why I know how government works. That's why when people try to tell me something about President Trump, or they try to tell me something about Biden, and it's coming through the media, you know, I'm watching the media because I'm watching them. Like, I'm watching you. You know what I mean? I know that what they're saying today is a complete opposite of what they said last week. And now they will start to give Biden crap if he doesn't do what they want. Meanwhile, when he was running for office, they just ignored everything questionable because they wanted to get rid of Trump. And if you're the kind of person that you're going to watch TV and believe everything you read, by all means, don't watch the news. But if you're going to watch the news and pay attention and be, you know, I don't want to say Jehovah's Witness, but if you want to, you know, you need to be, you have to witness what's going on in your lifetime. You have to me, as a human being, you have to be, I'm watching you. I know what you're doing. Okay, government, I see what you're up to. I see that lie. You said the opposite last week. Okay, now you're doing stuff that's going to get people murdered. If you're not watching the news, okay, if you're not staying abreast of the situation, I mean, the point is, I'm saying they're lying. The news is lying all the time. So you don't watch it and believe everything, go around like a ding dong. You watch the news to see what they're telling you. Use your mind to filter through the bullshit and come up with what's really going on. But if you just block the whole thing out, then stick your head in the sand. Because that's who you are. And by all means, please do not vote if you have stuck your head in the sand for the last 4 years and now you've decided, now I'm going to vote for this guy because I'm so proud of myself that I don't watch the news. You know, and these are the love and light people. Like I said, these are the gurus, the self-appointed gurus, and the Hollywood actresses and stuff like that. They don't know what the hell they're talking about, but they'll tell poor people who to vote for with their millions of followers on Instagram, and ding-dong children will believe them, or mindless groupies. And it's like, you should have been watching the news instead of watching, you know, silly actress tell you everything because she's trying to sell you some kind of, I don't know, anti-aging product. You know, if everything you're watching, if you're not watching the news but you're on Instagram all day looking at famous people try to sell you something that's going to make you as good looking as they are when it's genes that they got from their parents and it's not in whatever bottle they're trying to sell you, if you're that dumb and you're not watching the news, I mean, if the idea that people are not watching the news and not watching social media, you got to be living off the grid if you're doing that. You have to be somebody who's got everything settled. You have enough rations and food, and you can your own vegetables. You have your own garden. You have chickens and stuff. I mean, if you're not living like that, if you are part of society and you know, you pay taxes and you go to a grocery store and you're part of life, like you still associate, you have to be abreast of the world you're living in because you're living in it. If you have detached from society and you're a hermit and you live in the woods, fine, don't watch the news. You know, if you just want to look at the sun and the weather and, you know, praise the Lord and you know, the four winds or whatever, and you're really just living that way, you know, fine, but then don't vote or don't tell anybody else to vote for. And, you know, don't be surprised when you don't know what's going on, when tanks are rolling up the street and you're just sitting there talking to your chickens and you didn't know Civil War was breaking out. To me, there's been so much going on in the world, so much change. That's why I always say when I was growing up, because I feel, okay, when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, I feel like the world wasn't that different than when my mother was growing up in the 30s and 40s. Now, of course it was different. in a lot of ways, right? People travel more and stuff like that. But the complete difference is that, you went outside, you could have an umbrella and stuff like that. You know, the weather wasn't insane all the time. The weather wasn't crazy all the time. People weren't insane. People weren't shooting people. Everybody wasn't medicated like crazy. It's not the same world remotely that it was for like the generations before. So everything is so chaotic. And the more people are all doing their own thing and maybe not watching the news or, whatever they're doing, there's no commonality. Everybody's all over the place. You get this utter chaos that we're living in right now. And we should have been all these years working together to not fix things, but prepare for the world that we're in. And we weren't prepared for this germ that was not as bad as they made it out to be. Was it bad? Yes. Was it to break down society? No. Nobody had the mental fortitude or the life experience and stuff in their head, at least not the people running things, to say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? Hey, wait a minute. And as time's gone on and more of these things have, really nonsensical things have happened, I'm like, where are we headed now? I mean, like I said, they were going to shove the little kids back in school, so they went back to school yesterday here locally, and I'm watching the news, and they're interviewing parents outside the school, and there's little kids with their little masks and their backpacks and stuff, and I'm looking at them, and then I just got this feeling, I'm like, oh my God, as much as kids need to go to school and stuff like that, I'm like, with the way they've handled the virus, with the way they've let it be ridiculous, and I think by us being home and stuff, it incubated in all of us and made our own variants and stuff. So I'm like, those kids are germ factories anyway. I'm like, them kids are going to go incubate a bunch of different varieties of the virus. It's going to mix together, make one super virus. We're going to have the zombie apocalypse because little kids went back to school, and they're going to be good, and they're going to sit at their desk, and they're going to, but kids are kids, and, they're going to be around each other. And I'm not saying they're going to lick each other or anything like that, but they're going to just be there with a germ within 6 feet of their friends. 6 feet away from their friends at their own desks. But they're going to be there all day. And they're going to be in the room. And I know they've got ventilation and all that stuff now. But they could bubble up a new varieties that kids' immunities are strong. The older people's are not. Now we could have the situation they always talked about of the younger people making the older people sick. Teachers might start dropping like flies. Then they'll figure it out. Then they'll be like, whoops. But at that point, all the new variants that they'll have tests for months later will be out there, and they'll be stronger. That's what, I don't know. That's the feeling I got when I saw the little kids going to school. I wasn't thinking that. I just saw them, and then I was like, those little germ factories gonna incubate everything. They're gonna whip up a new variety, and they're gonna be going like crazy, infecting all the elders. And it's gonna be what they thought in the first place, but it's gonna happen now because the virus has had so much time to mutate and change. And like I said, if we were all going outside and being healthy and being around each other, we would have done the herd immunity thing without the stupid vaccines. The vaccines could be altering things. They could be making certain things worse. Like, say you have somebody who gets the vaccine, right? And then that person meets with a new variant that the vaccine doesn't cover, right? What if the new variant plus the crap in the vaccine makes a super virus? Or all these old people that on the Today Show, they were talking about these old people wanting to go on vacation. Like I said, the minute the vaccine came, I noticed people acting different. People were acting like everything was all, before people were all paranoid. If you went somewhere like Wendy's or whatever, they were sitting quiet, and like a couple days after they said the vaccine was approved, people were all talking like, they had their masks on, but they were talking and acting normal. And I'm like, okay, so people are less cautious. You go in a grocery store, you go in a store, you put your hand in the hand sanitizer thing, there's nothing in there. You know what I mean? It's been like that for a long time. They don't sanitize the carts as much as they used to. There used to be a guy outside with like a hose with the thing on it. Like it had the bottle of stuff, and I haven't seen him do that in a long time. So, these people, these old people, are now going on vacation because they got the vaccine, and it's like they said you're not supposed to do that. These people, if they were watching the news and they were doing what they're supposed to, they would be sitting there and being like, okay, I can't, I gotta wait a while, make sure I'm safe, and then go out. No, they got the shot in their arm, they got the second shot, let's go on vacation, let's go to Florida. It's like, all the people who made the vaccine said, no, you still gotta be careful, you still gotta social distance, because the vaccines, they give you some protection. That's what these vaccines do. That's what's been the line on them all along. They give you some protection. Giving you the vaccine, you ask these people straight to their face, they're not going to tell you the vaccine makes you immune. I think a lot of people think that, oh, vaccine, I'm immune, I can do whatever I want now, I'm going to go lick people. No. The vaccines give you some protection, so you still have to be careful. But nope, these people have been cooped up for so long, which they shouldn't have been. They're going to be like, okay, I got my vaccine, I'm safe. Because even one lady was like, okay, we can have the grandkids over now. And it's like, maybe, but you still could get it. I mean, I worry that a bunch of people who have gotten it because they're in the older bracket. So these elderly people, or senior citizens who've gotten the vaccine, are really like, I can have my grandkids over now, and they're going to go back to normal, and you can't go back to normal yet, and then they are going to get sick. And even if they get a lighter version of the virus because they did get the vaccine, they're still going to have the virus. And for an older person, that may be way worse than, for a younger person getting a lighter version of the virus. So they don't know. It's a new vaccine. It's a new disease. Like I said, in the beginning, they were saying, I don't know. I heard them say, I don't know. Then they started to sound more confident in saying, no, it's like this and it's like that. And when people start doing that, they're full of crap. And that's what they did. And that's why people started acting like you have to do things exactly like this, because we know, instead of just saying, let's all be careful because we don't know what the hell's going on, they started saying, do it exactly like this, do it exactly like that. Like I said, when people were wearing masks and everybody stopped wearing gloves, I said, okay, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because your hands, if I touch something, I touch this, my hand's there. There were germs on here. It's not my hand. If I don't wash my hands immediately, it's in my skin now. Germs go into your skin. So like I said, this whole time we're walking around, nobody's wearing gloves. Everybody's touching everything. You go to the store, not every store has mechanical doors. Some of them you're going to grab and open the door. You're touching the carts. You're touching the ATM. You're touching you go to the store and you got to use your card, right? Okay, you use your card instead of paying with money because you want to be safe. You put your card in. You got to press the buttons. You got to press your code or whatever to use the self-service machines. The self-service checkout. There's not somebody coming by 2 seconds after you and wiping before somebody else uses it. So you got something on your hands because you touched the can of SpaghettiOs in the aisle that Jeremy McSneezy touched before you, and now it's on your hands. You put it on the control. Person behind you presses the. Doesn't matter if you hand sanitize on the way out and you hand sanitize on the way in. Jeremy McSneezy touched the SpaghettiOs. You touched it. You're now touching the thing. Okay, that's how germs work. So unless you can live in a vacuum and in a controlled environment, the germs are always going to spread. If you are an educated person, meaning you paid attention all these years, instead of, I don't want to watch the news, I don't want to pay attention. I want to put my head in the sand. You would know this shit. But if you're putting your head in the sand person, and you're believing in love and light and stuff like that, and you're not paying attention, you're not going to know what's going on. You're not going to know what's true and what's not true. So when you do hear something, you're going to fall for it, or you're going to believe it. Or if it sounds like love and light to you, you're going to go with it. Even though that person could be the biggest bullshit artist in the world, if they say, let's take care of the grandmas, you're going to do whatever they say because that's love and light. If they say, no, let's keep everything open and screw the grandmas, you're going to be like, no, because that's not love and light. So I just rambled for a long time. I don't know if I made any sense. Did I make any sense? I don't know. My brain is freezing because when it gets cold like this, even if I'm in the house, somehow the cold from outside gets into my brain and it froze. I don't know what I just said.